Phase 2 of Season of Discovery has been great so far for Meta Warlock. It turned out that Meta Warlock's runes were extremely balanced, and due to their innate offensive or defensive nature, Meta Warlock has the ability to swap just a few runes and completely change how they play. Meta, in my opinion, is one of the most balanced specs I have seen, and I really hope they use this class going forward to measure how to create great choices and trade-offs between runes and talents. The only issue is, because you have so much choice in how you play, maybe you might be thinking, what's the best build? What is the build that I should do for X content? Or maybe you just want to expand your knowledge. Well, today we're going to do that. Here are 5 of the best Meta Warlock builds I have played so far in Phase 2 of Season of Discovery. The first build we're going to talk about is the Meta Destra Warlock build. This build relies on synergies from Lake of Fire, Shadow and Flame, Incinerate, and Demonic Knowledge. This is one of the highest damage builds you can have as Meta Warlock, coming in at 650 DPS, which is only about 150 DPS off of a pure Destra Warlock build. And right here is the Bistless. This is the gear that you want to be going for this build. And next we will talk about the talents. The talents look very, very similar to a pure Destra Warlock build. You're going to go 5 points into Cataclysm, 5 points into Bane, 5 points into Devastation, 5 points into Improved Searing Pain, and 1 point into Ruin. This is going to be the fundamental building blocks of the Meta Warlock Destra spec. You are going to want to take these talents no matter what. Everything else is kind of up to your discretion as you go. Imp in Phase 2 of Season of Discovery is still extremely strong, and so therefore for the next couple of talents, I want to go ahead and put 2 points into Improved Firebolt and 3 points into Improved Imp in the Demonology tree. This rounds out our damage, and for short fights, we're going to get a lot of damage out of our Imp. We still have a couple points left before we can get down to Emberstorm, so I would suggest taking Intensity. Intensity is just a really good ability when you're talking about AoE tanking, AoE mob grinding, gives you a 70% chance to resist interruption caused by damage while channeling Rain of Fire, Hellfire, or Soulfire. I think this is a really good option, but if you're really wanting to go with like a purist DPS build, specifically for single target parsing on boss fights, you can go instead into Improved Immolation, and that will work just fine as well. And as far as the rotation for this build, the rotation is fairly straightforward. You're going to want to maintain Lake of Fire on the boss at all times while maintaining your Incinerate ability. You want to be keeping Immolate up at all times. You're going to be running Imp, who's going to be hard casting on the boss. And in between casting Incinerate, you will be spamming Searing Pain. And there we have it, guys. Best in slot Meta Destra Warlock build. Fairly straightforward. Now the next build we're going to talk about is really what makes Meta Warlock so cool. Just by switching around a couple runes and keeping the exact same talents that we had previously, we can transform ourselves into a significantly tankier version of a high DPS Destro Meta Warlock. You're going to take your chest engraving as Demonic Tactics. You're going to change out your pants rune for Demonic Grace, and you're going to change out your boots rune for Dance of the Wicked. Now, if you haven't read these abilities, Demonic Grace surges you with fell energy, increasing your pets and your own dodge chance by 30%, and your chance to critically strike with all attacks by 30%. Combine that with the amazing boot rune Dance of the Wicked, which gives your demon pet and yourself dodge chance equal to the spell critical strike chance each time you deal a critical strike to an enemy. This means that you can activate Demonic Grace and spam Searing Pain into the boss to trigger a critical strike and therefore get up to 35 to 45 dodge chance for about 15 seconds every 20 seconds. And not only that, since you are also running Demonic Tactics on your chest, that increases your critical strike chance by 10% flat. You're pretty much constantly running at about 15% dodge chance at all times during the fight, and then spiking up once you activate Demonic Grace to about 35 to 45% dodge chance. This is an insanely good build for not only damage, but also mitigation, in that your dodge chance gives you a higher chance of not being hit by the boss, obviously. And the best part about this build is it still packs an insane punch, doing 450 DPS as a tank to single target bosses. But what I love so much about Meta, again, is just the depth that you can go into. Let's say you're running this build and it's actually a little bit too much. You're not ever really in danger of dying from a boss. Maybe it's an easier boss fight. Well, there's even a build that you can run in between the best in slot damage meta build and this build. Just by swapping out our pants rune to the Incinerate rune instead of the Demonic Grace rune, we're able to gain an additional 80 DPS at the cost of some of our dodge chance, while still maintaining our overall 10 to 15% dodge chance over the course of the fight. So again, this is really something special for Meta Warlock. Being able to quickly just switch around a couple runes to gain a bit more damage at the cost of some defense is a great feature to have as a tank, especially when every raid is so different. So if with the previous build you're taking a bit too much damage, just remember that you can always swap around a couple runes, specifically Dance of the Wicked, Demonic Grace, and Demonic Tactics, to get a more defensive build. Speaking of defensive builds, let's now talk about the most defensive build you can run as Meta Warlock, which does require you to change around a bit of your talent. The most defensive build does keep these same Demonic Tactics, Shadow Flame, Demonic Grace, Dance of the Wicked, and Metamorphosis runes that the last build kept, but now instead of running full Destro talents, we're going to want to run the Soul Link build. The Soul Link build is from the Demonology tree, and if you don't know what Soul Link does, it reduces the damage you're taken by 30% and essentially gives you a shared health pool with your pet, which is usually your Voidwalker. Additionally, you both will do about 3% more damage, but this is basically irrelevant. So the build I am suggesting for the Soul Link build is fairly straightforward. You're going to go 5 points into Demonic Embrace. You're going to go 5 points into Fell Intellect. You can also take 3 of these points and put them into Improved Voidwalker if you want to have sort of the ability to sacrifice your pet and resummon him as a defensive cooldown, but I don't really think I would need this in this sort of build, but again, that's up to you. Next, you want to take 1 point into Fell Domination. This will allow you to quickly resummon your pet if your pet dies for whatever reason, if your healer is not healing it. It lets you get out another pet so that you can maintain your Soul Link. Then we're going to go 4 points into Fell Stamina. This is a flat increase of health to your pets. We're going to go 5 points into Unholy Power so that we can unlock Master Demonologist. This is a huge ability because when you have your Voidwalker out, you're going to reduce your physical damage taken by an additional 10%. So almost 40% damage reduction just from talents in this build. Absolutely huge defensively. This is a great defensive build, and it's because of this Master Demonologist and Soul Link synergy. Next, we're going to put 2 points into Improved Firestone. This is just going to give you a bit more damage from your Firestone effect, give you a bit more spell power on your offhand. This is just a nice talent to have. And then we're also going to go 1 point into Demonic Sacrifice, and this is because we need to get down to the Soul Link ability. You won't really ever use Demonic Sacrifice. Maybe there's a niche time where you do want to use it, but for the most part, you're going to be just using Soul Link. You are going to want to have your pet out. All right, and since we're level 40, there's not really a lot of flexibility with this build. It takes 40 points to get the Soul Link. You can't go a couple points into Destruction Tree. You can't go a couple points into the Affliction Tree, but next phase, you will be able to do so. This build, again, is relying on you hitting Demonic Grace on cooldown. You are spamming Searing Pain into the boss, maintaining Immolate when you can, and you are overall just face tanking absolutely everything because you have insane damage reduction. And again, this is not a damage focused build. You're going to be doing about 300 DPS, which still isn't too bad. Now, let's say you run this Soul Link build, for example, and again, you have the issue where, hey, I have a bit too much defense. I could take a little bit of offense here and I could still live and be okay. Well, again, this is what makes Meta Warlock so freaking awesome, man. You can change around a couple talents here. You could change out your Chest Engraving. Maybe you want to change out your Incinerate rune here. And maybe you want to even change out your Boot rune to your DPS heavy Demonic Knowledge rune. And boom, you get a 162 DPS increase on your Soul Link build by just switching around a couple runes and changing the way that you do your rotation. This really gives you a ton of flexibility as Desert Tank, and again, is one of the reasons that I just love this class right now, man. The ability to swap your runes and completely change how your class plays is so cool. So there you have it, guys. You have the best damage build, you have the best tank build, and you have some builds in between. The last build I'm going to leave you guys with is a little special thing that I cooked up myself. It doesn't really have damage sims. It is really an open world farming build that essentially just gives you the ability to tank anywhere between one really high level mob or maybe several lower level mobs at the same time. For the solo build, this is going to look fairly similar to the Destro damage build with just a little bit of tweaks here. You're going to take 5 points into Cataclysm, 5 points into Bane, 5 points into Devastation, Improve Searing Pain, Ruin. You're going to grab Intensity, and that is all you're going to take from the Destruction Tree. After that, you're going to take 5 points into Suppression and 3 points into Improve Drain Life. Now, the reason for this is because a lot of the mobs that you want to farm in the open world for gold, for items, for whatever else, they're going to be higher level than just yourself, meaning that you have a less of a chance to hit them. Now, this isn't really that big of a deal, but when we're talking about surviving, you want to make sure that your Drain Life ability actually hits the target, or you could potentially die. And we want to reduce the amount of deaths that we have overall. Not only this, but also in combination with intensity. To do an AoE farm, you're going to want to first set up your Drain Life ability and then go into Hellfiring. So you're going to want to make sure that your Drain Life hits, or you're probably going to die. So let's move on to the runes. Again, like I said, you're going to be taking Master Channeler on the chest piece. This is so that you have a way to heal yourself during the fight, and this is going to be based around sort of the more defensive builds in the game. I just found it works the best. You're going to take Demonic Grace to pants, you're going to take Dance of the Wicked to boots, you're going to be popping Demonic Grace for your Dance of the Wicked boots procs, you're going to be setting up your life drain so you do not die on the ads that you're taking. You can use your Imp, you can use your Voidwalker, whatever works best for you, and then you will be spamming Searing Pain into targets. And again, I found this build works absolutely fantastically for farming higher level mobs, farming multiple mobs at the same time. Any sort of farming outworld experience you are looking for, this is the build for that. Also, I've been taking this build into PvP, not at any high level or anything, just sort of casual solo queue type scenarios where I don't really need to be, spamming Fear on cooldown for the boys. This is overall just a really tanky pumper build. I freaking love it. Try it out, let me know what you guys think. So boys, those are all the builds you need to know about in Phase 2 to succeed with the meta Warlock. I have been having an absolute blast playing this spec, and I hope you guys have too. Let me know in the comments below what you think, if I missed something, or if I'm just cooked. I've been Java Monkey J. Peace.